Hello, sweet friends. I am so excited to dive into today's topic. We're going to be talking about triggers, and we're going to be talking specifically around something that happened last weekend where I was finding myself really triggered in my role of mothership, right? And I was finding myself triggered by something in particular. And I realized it went so much deeper than that. And so I had this, I guess, feeling like it's like I want to just pull the curtain aside and let you see a real moment of life and about the things that we go through as mothers, as humans. Even if you're not a mom, you're going to resonate with what I share with you today. And it's just these micro moments that are showing us that there's something there for us to heal. And so I'm going to just really quickly define what a trigger is. So a trigger is something that's going to have an energetic stamp. So it's going to feel like almost an overreaction to something that's happening. And that's because it's not the thing that's happening that's triggering us. It's a remembrance of a story within the cells of our body that's getting triggered. So there's energy there already based on that thing. So for instance, if let's say weight for you is something that you're triggered around, that one feels like really tangible and a lot of people are experiencing that. So if you feel triggered by your weight, and someone says something about someone else, oh, that person is so fat or whatever it might be, you might be like, oh, like clench and feel a little bit triggered by that. And it's like one of those little micro moments, but we believe that to be so much more within the cells of our body because of stories and energy that we already have within ourselves, right? And so it's this idea of, I feel like 99.9% of the population, if not 100, has moved through those feelings of fear of body or not totally loving their bodies, right? And so when we hear either other people say something about our body or we hear other people talking about other people's bodies, there's a trigger there because we already have energy attached to that story. So essentially, it's going to be a bigger trigger than the instance itself. And so what I'm going to share with you is a small instance that I had a big trigger towards. And it was like, oh, there's something so much bigger here. And so that's what I want to start really breathing into the space is let's all start giving ourselves a little bit of a break here. Let's start having a little more grace with each other and with ourselves, because the thing that's frustrating us is not the trigger. It's not the thing. It's the thing underneath the thing, right? And so I'm going to share with you a potent example of what seemed like something very small, but when I started to get underneath it, what's actually here and how I started to neutralize it. So this idea of lifestyle alchemy, we're alchemizing all the things that are not working for us so that we can then be more free, feel our most abundant self, feel like we can just be our authentic selves without having to hold back, especially when we're the ones ultimately judging ourselves, right? So that's what a trigger is. It's something that we already have an energetic attachment to. And so it triggers us even more. It's like touching that hot pan, like, oh, it was already hot. And then I touched it. And now I'm really aware that it's hot, right? And so that's the idea I want you to know. It was already hot. You touched something that had you realize it was burning. And now your goal is to start to fizzle down that heat, neutralize it, alchemize it. And I'll share with you some of the ways that I did that. So the example that I had was we were going on a small little trip from our house to our townhome that we were selling. And so we decided it would be fun to bring Will on that trip. So we stopped by Starbucks. Shout out to Starbucks. That's one of like his favorite places to go. And so we go to Starbucks, we get him egg bites, and I realized they had forgotten his fork. So I was like, okay, we're just going to have him pick it up with his hands. And so I was like cutting it into small pieces. And then all of a sudden I give it to him and the egg bites go fucking everywhere. And for whatever reason, because they're super hot, they're like molding into like his seat, and it's like just fucking egg bites everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, the pan is hot. Like the pan is so hot. And so I started to have a moment where I was like just getting heated. And I'm really actually so blessed that my soulmate had this moment of like, no, you don't get to be mad about this. He's a child and these things happen. And so I actually really appreciated my husband being like, you can chill out. These are egg bites and this is a family trip and we're going to have a great day. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, wow, I just got really upset about egg bites. Like, whoa, okay, there's something here. Let me like better understand what's here. So when I started to connect with what's underneath this, I realized there's this generational piece of energy that's been passed down over and over and over again around, I can't have nice things when I have children, or children mess up my things. And I want to blame my child for messing up my beautiful things. And so it's like, how does that then translate? Then the child is blaming themselves. I'm thinking about myself, me blaming myself for messing something up in childhood. That then translated into adulthood, me blaming myself for doing XYZ. It doesn't help anyone. Children are going to be children. They're going to get messy. Our stuff will get messy, and that is okay. It's part of the learning experience. And I manifested this experience into my reality to know that the pan was hot. If this hadn't happened, I wouldn't have known that I had this limiting belief around children mess up things, can't trust children with things. It's like I wasn't really giving Will the opportunity to really play with things and connect with things in a way where it would test whether he was ready for it or not. And the only way to be ready for something is to learn how to do it, and to do it often and over and over and over again, and to mess up and to fail, and then to learn how to do it differently. And that is an incredible life skill to have, no matter what we're doing in business, whether we're entrepreneurs, working for someone else, whatever that might be, whether we're mothers, whether we're every role we play, we have to be okay with failing. We have to be okay with failing, because we will inevitably fail as we're learning. That's how we learn. We're not going to do it perfect the first time, ever. Or maybe every once in a while, once in a blue moon, we're going to do it perfect the first time. We're going to be like, great. And then we do it another time. We're like, shit, I forgot how to do it. Or, okay, but I did it before. Whatever the story might be, we're not failing, we're learning. And so I realized, oh my God, I've been carrying around so much pressure inside of myself, putting so much unnecessary pressure on myself, unnecessary pressure on my child. And like, whose is this? Can I release it? And I realized it's not even mine. I don't want to be upset about my child getting messy. I don't want to be upset about egg bites that can come out with wet wipes. Like, it came out. It was easy. I was just totally blowing it out of proportion. And so I'm really grateful that I was able to say, and here's what you can do when you feel yourself being triggered. Is this mine? If not, whose is this? And you don't even necessarily have to know whose it is, but you can just give it up to God, or give it down to Mother Earth to alchemize, and just be like, this story is not working for me anymore. I release it. This is not working for me anymore. I release it, because it doesn't feel good in my body to be holding this kind of energy, this kind of hot pan within me, because then every time someone touches it, I'm in a bad mood. That doesn't work for me anymore. Okay. Like, my goal is to have grace with myself, grace with other people, be open to seeing new points of view, be open to feedback. I actually really appreciated when my husband called me on my shit and was like, hey, let's chill. Let's take it down a couple notches. And I was like, you're right. And so there's this idea of being open to feedback. Here's something I want to really share too about feedback. Have discernment around feedback. So for instance, if someone says something to us and it triggers us, like if someone says something to us, they give us a piece of feedback, it triggers us, that means we're not necessarily ready to let that go yet. Or there's some sort of story underneath that that's telling us that it's not okay to have these things, and therefore this person is judging me, and that's not fair, and I hate this person, and I'm not open to it. All these things where we close off to feedback, when really it's such a beautiful opportunity for us to learn and for us to expand, because the people that are closest to us in our lives will trigger us, and our goal is to learn from them about ourselves. They are mirrors for who we are. Now, with that being said, I also want to say that sometimes people can provide feedback that's based on their own projections towards us. So if someone says something to us and we just feel neutral about it, like we're like, that's just simply not true, then that's theirs. So I do want to put that out there. If someone is saying something to you and you're like, yeah, that's just not my truth. Like, I love you and you can have that truth, but that's just not true for me. Then you know that there's not a hot pan there. It's neutral, and that it's them projecting at you. If there's a part of you becomes triggered based on the feedback they give you, there may be something there for you to explore, right? And so it's this idea of, we don't get triggered unless there's already a hot pan there, unless there's already energy there, a story there telling us something. It's not okay to be like, one person can only be right. that is something that absolutely gets to be healed, right? That's something that gets to be healed because two people can have their own truth in any moment. And our truth can change in any moment as well. And so it's this idea of letting there be two truths at one time and also being okay with being like, hey, that's not my truth. If it's very neutral, you're like, I'm not even triggered by that. Like, I'm just neutral about it. Or if you are triggered by it, maybe there's something there for you to look deeper underneath. Why is it triggering me that this person said that? Because if it's true, that makes me a bad person. Does it actually make you a bad person? Or are you just telling yourself you're a bad person? That's where your trigger's lying. If they're right, then I'm wrong. I'm the bad one. No, not at all. You're learning. You're growing. Again, that idea of we're not failing, we're learning. Or without the failure, there is no learning, right? We're not going to do it perfect every time. We didn't tie our shoes perfectly the first time we learned how to do it. In fact, we got really upset by it at first. We got triggered by it. Why? Because whatever that reason was, the story underneath the trigger, right? So it's that idea of really just noticing and having the discernment around when you receive feedback, is this mine? Is there something underneath it? Or is it neutral, which means it's probably theirs? Or I'm able to see it from the higher perspective. It might feel neutral as well because you're already seeing it from that higher perspective, which is why when Brad gave me that feedback, it also felt neutral, but it felt true. So there's that one as well, where it's this idea of being like, you know what? I'm not mad that he told me that. And there's truth to what he said. Okay, I'm going to actually do something with that, right? So there's those 3 different levels of the triggers. We're either neutral because it's not true, neutral because it's true and we're seeing it from the higher perspective, or we're triggered because there is something there for us to explore. So continuing on with this story. So we had this beautiful day planned, right? Where we're like, oh my gosh, like white picket fences, perfect day, bubbles, unicorns, yay, road trip. And then there's egg bites everywhere. And then I learned something about myself, right? So anyways, we had to stop by Home Depot to get something. And so Will is like, really wants to get out of the car. So I'm like, okay, like we'll just get him out of the car for a second. So we get out of the car, we go into Home Depot. I'm just thinking, oh, he's just going to play with like, just like want to look around for a minute. He did not want to leave that store at all. And so that was another thing that I learned from is how much I desired to control that day. I'm like, this is how the day's going to go. We're going to have bubbles and we're going to have Starbucks and we're going to have the most beautiful road trip. And then we're going to get to that place and he's going to be like, wow, I cannot believe, whatever the story was that I had in my mind. And I was like, I wanted to go to plan, right? Stepping into Home Depot and him not wanting to leave had me be like, oh, I'm having to relinquish control right now. And I really want to just put him back in the car. And what would happen if I just let this go? I asked myself that question. What would happen if I just let this go? I took a deep breath, 2 inhales, 4 counts of the exhale. That will immediately calm your body. 2 counts for the inhale, 4 counts for the exhale. And then I thought, the schedule I made was like subjective. It's okay if we stop at Home Depot for a minute. It's okay. I can pause here. Like we can pause here. It's not a big deal. We were planning on going to the park. What if this is his park? What if playing with those sliding doors, right? The automatic doors is his park time. Release, exhale, body expanding. Now I can be present with him in this moment of play. Now I can be really present with him in this moment of play. I'm going to say that again so you can hear it. Now that I let it go, I can be present with my son in this moment of play without having to grip it, without having to control it. And suddenly the day got so much more fun. Suddenly there were bubbles, right? There were bubbles in my mind's eye. It's like, oh yeah, it's fun because I'm letting it be fun. Before, I was actually making it not fun for anyone. Oh, interesting. I'm again manifesting my own reality. So all this to say, this is one of those everyday moments, right? As a parent, these things happen. As a human, these things happen. We have nice things and they get destroyed sometimes. Or we have a plan and it doesn't go to plan, right? Or someone calls us on our shit and we either take it or we don't, right? Or we want to blame someone for something and then we realize that's not working for me or them. So underneath all of this is just that willingness, that ability to see life from a different lens, to start to say, you know what if I let this go? What if I just released the reins for a minute? What if I let today go in a different way? What if I actually just said, whose is this? Is this even mine? Is this even serving me? Is this story fun to have? Hell no. I'm going to change that story. I can have nice things and I can have children and I can let myself create the fun that I desire to have in the day, right? I can let myself relinquish control and suddenly have fun and be present with my child. And I can stop blaming people for other things and realize I have the power to release the stories that are actually causing havoc within me. And then I'm projecting it outwards, and that's not working for anyone. And if I want that beautiful day, I get to create it, regardless of what's happening around me. Right? So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this little micro example was having you realize how easy it really can be to alchemize big stories. So it's this idea of even with a micro example, underneath that micro example is a lot of energy. And so that pan is hot. And so what this pan is telling you is once you touch it, you realize it was already there and it was already on and it was already hot. So all these triggers are doing are pointing you in the right direction. They're pointing you to ways that you can heal, ways that you can expand, ways that you can create more presence, ways that you can create more fun, right? And so this is what lifestyle alchemy is looking at the life that you're currently living and asking yourself, what can I alchemize? What can I shift? What would feel better for me right now if I let it go? If I released it? So I hope that this was supportive. And I just want to send so much light and love to every mama out there, every dad out there, every human out there. These moments, these hot pans are real and they're meant to be seen and alchemized and healed. So I'm just sending you so much light and love as you move through all of your triggers, all of the things that might be frustrating you in this moment in time. Just know they're there for a reason. Your soul actually manifested this for you so that you could alchemize this and be more free. Create a more soul-aligned life where you're actually experiencing deeper levels of freedom than you ever knew existed. So I'm sending you so much light and love, and I cannot wait to see where this little micro example starts to show up in your life and how you start to actually choose differently, because it's all a choice. It's all a choice point. And I really deeply encourage you to try this at least once. See how it changes your day. See how it changes the moment. See how it changes the relationship dynamic and how you get to show up for yourself and other people. And report back. Let me know. Reach out to me on Instagram. I am Christina Deering. I would love to know if this resonated with you and how this is shifting your own reality and your level of freedom that you create for yourself. Because personal freedom is quite literally created within you. I love you so much, sweet friends, and I cannot wait until next week. See you soon.